seems we are only missing one person, and it is 7 o'clock. So
well, the drunken American couple aren't here.
So, yeah, but I think they left.
Those bastards. Now you know why I'm like, you know what I'm doing, right? Oh my God.
So, but I want to say welcome to Bob Layton, who's here to visit us all the way from the US. And today he will be doing a small talk with our own Jannik and
I don't get it.
I want to thank everybody for showing up, and I hope you have a great time. So.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Welcome, everybody. Yeah. Let's start with your tour around the world right now.
Oh yeah.
What are you doing?
My map.
Yeah, I got your map.
Well, okay. So far, I have successfully marked off 4 of those.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with why?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Let's hear why.
Well, during COVID, I really thought about. I lost my mother during COVID, and during that time, my family. I moved back to Florida from Hollywood and started my own production company because these days you can live anywhere and work and film, so it didn't matter. That's where the mayor came in and all that sort of thing. But I wanted to be with my grandchildren. I have 4 grandmen. Well, I have grandmen and grandwoman. They're all adults now. And but at the time they weren't, and I realized that they were growing up and they didn't know who I was, and I wanted them to know who I was. It's important because I know in my head the people that I love most dear still live there, like Dick Giordano and my mother and those people. We passed that on, right? I didn't want them to grow up without knowing who I was. That might be a curse on their part, but there you go. During that time, during COVID, while I was kind of locked away, I started like thinking, well, they're all grown up now. I mean, my oldest one got married, and the other 2 were in college, and the 4th one, the girl, she getting her driver's license, and once kids get their driver's license, they have no use for grandparents, okay? Except for gas money, all right? So I thought, okay, that happened, and then a number of my contemporaries had passed away in that period as well. Neil Adams and George Perez, I can go down the list, but it started making me think that the average lifespan of an American male is 84 years. That means I have 14 years left to be on this planet. And I need to do, there's a lot of stuff I need to do first. And one of it was to be here. Because I've always wanted to come to Copenhagen. I've been invited, but I had circumstances that didn't allow me to come for one reason or another. So I put together this list of all the places I wanted to visit around the world. But I looked for places that had comic shops, because if I do something like this, it's tax deductible. So Barrett didn't really know that, as much as I love her and kid, they're just a tax write-off. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for making this possible. Because I'm no dummy. I've been in business my whole life, and I realized that I can still tour around the world and do it, economically. So all I have to do is show up and look. Most of the time, you guys have all traveled, right? Why can't you get 50 people to show up to meet you all at once? It's like I get a chance to meet all of you through these wonderful venues, through these wonderful events that they have programmed here. And who gets that? Fortunately for our love of the characters that we share, I get a chance to meet all you wonderful people all at once, and it's something most people never get to do when they travel. So I'm really grateful for that. So of course she was one of the first to respond positively. The Germans told me to go eat shit, basically. I don't know why. The Germans had no interest in me coming. It turned out that I found out that during COVID, I watched a lot of Korean dramas, and apparently Iron Man is the most popular American character in Korea. So they jumped at it, So I'm going to spend a lot of time there. Greece, I had friends in Greece, whatever. So most of these people are all people that responded to me positively, you know. And so I set out on this like homeless adventure. I got rid of my apartment. I sold my car. You know, it's like, and I decided that I'm going to travel the world and not have a fixed address. It's the most liberating feeling I've ever had in my life. I have no place to go back to, you know, so I can only go forward.
Wow.
And yeah. But travel to me has always been the best teacher in the world, because I mean, I'm here. I knew nothing about Denmark before I came here. I didn't even look up stuff. You know, I didn't want to. I remember Mary Ken asked me, well, what do you want to do? And I said, live. I just want to live here for a while and just know what it's like to be one of you, you know. And so I'm digging it big time, by the way, so far. You know, it's like you guys make a lot more sense than Americans. Oh, absolutely. You know, America makes no sense at all. Which is one of the reasons why I wanted to leave too, because it was just getting to be a place I didn't recognize anymore. And I just thought that by traveling the world, I could kind of readjust my values and decide what I want for the rest of my life, what I want to do. You know, besides making movies, I mean, just in terms of how I want to live.
Cool.
So I sat my family down and told them that I was leaving. They were actually very supportive. Can't say that didn't hurt a little bit. But my daughter always knew that I'm restless by nature. I've never stayed in one place very long. And she kind of knew this was the longest I'd ever stayed in one place, because I love my grandchildren. But they're, like I said, they're adults now. They don't need me anymore. So now my life is my own again. So here I am.
Cool.
Yeah, here, hanging with you.
Yeah.
In this wonderful place.
Cool. Now I want to talk about some comics.
Well, you made a graph?
I made a graph.
Holy shit!
I want to dig into your comics and talk about your comics, but I want to give some kind of context before because
Victorian age, that's where I start my career? I'm not that old, man.
you started in Bronze Age.
Oh, okay.
And you crossed over to Modern Age, right? Or Dark Modern Age, it's called.
Dark?
Yeah.
Oh, for me, Frank Miller.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
yeah.
And
Yeah, he is the Dark Lord of comics.
Yeah. So I just wanted to give the audience a brief oversight of your career, because you have a lot of years behind you in the American comic industry.
Well, in 2025, I'll be celebrating 50 years.
50 years, yeah.
Yeah. I still look good.
Yeah, but I wanted to give this this overview, and during your time, we have experienced several lawsuits from creators against publishers. We experienced the DC implosion in the late 70s.
That's what got me to do Iron Man.
Yeah, I know.
Running from the implosion.
Yeah.
You know?
In the mid 80s, the Comics Code was abandoned.
Well, this is something kind of. The Comics Code was a toothless entity. Even if it disapproved, we just go do it anyway. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, they really had. They were only there because of the 50s Wortham scare, right?
Yeah.
They were active in the 60s, but by the late 70s, they were a toothless entity.
Yeah, but they were still printed on
on
the issues.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until they I don't know when they abandoned it exactly. We didn't bother with Valiant, but the only time I ever heard from the Comic Code Authority, and this is the stupidity of it all, okay, bureaucracy. We did a scene in Iron Man when Tony Stark picks up this girl and goes back to his luxury hotel, right? Gee, he's never done that before, right? So we showed the next morning. This was in the 80s. We showed the next morning. He's getting up or whatever, you know, she's still lying in bed or whatever. And on the dresser, we thought we would show that Tony was being responsible, so we put a condom wrapper on it. And the Comics Code Authority made us take it out. And I go, wait a minute. You want to tell every kid in America that Tony Stark has unsafe sex in the 80s, okay? And they basically said yes. that's what I'm saying. That's that's bureaucracy for you.
Yeah.
You try to be responsible.
Yeah. During your career, there was also this rise and collapse of the speculator market, which
Well, I think that's a whole hour conversation in itself.
yeah, exactly.
I blame DC for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Death of Superman killed
that was
everybody.
that was in the 90s.
Yeah.
And during your career as well, Jim Shooter took over Marvel as
Yeah, he
editor-in-chief.
Yeah.
And we saw.
That's Marvel yourself as well.
that's conflict stuff as well.
Well, yeah, no, Jim, listen, I'm going to defend Jim, which is, I never do. Only in the sense that it's kind of like a yin and yang. For every bad thing he did a good thing too, you know? I mean, it doesn't even out in the long run. But the point, yeah, you still drove creators away, but the point of it is, but at the same time, he was responsible for a lot of really good things that did happen.
Yeah. We'll get into that later.
Okay.
During the 90s, we saw all these new publishers, Dark Horse, Image, Valiant.
Mm-hmm.
And Marvel declared for bankruptcy in 1996.
They made a stupid move and decided to distribute their own books.
Yeah.
In a time when the industry was collapsing.
Yeah.
And that led to Toy Biz owning Marvel.
Yeah.
And if you guys, there's a documentary just finished in America called Icons Uncovered. It's by the same people who did the movies that made us on Netflix. It's a 7-part expose about the forming of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it is probably one of the most honest, warts and all portrayals of what went on behind the scenes. And I know because I was there. I'm actually in a bunch of the episodes of the documentary. And it is, like I said, it's the most truthful thing I ever saw. And they cover all this. They talk about how Marvel changed hands and what was writing on the movies. It's definitely worth a look. If you could find it, I don't know where it's going to run here, but it's definitely worth watching.
What's it called?
It's called Icons Uncovered, Marvel.
Okay.
It's a 7-part episode, or 7-part documentary, and it is warts and all. I mean, it's amazing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and the last point I have is that we, in the period you were active, we experienced the first superhero movie.
Which one was that?
The first Superman in
Oh, yeah.
73, I think.
78.
No,
78.
no, it was after Star Wars, so.
Yeah.
So it was 76, so it'd be 77 was Superman.
Yeah. And now we have the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
So it's quite a journey you've been on.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I remember seeing Star Wars. Marvel had actually Star Wars saved Marvel from bankruptcy once before because the books were doing terrible when I was first there. And it's like that Roy Thomas got the license to Star Wars. And in fact, because nobody ever expected Star Wars to really sell, you know, everybody thought it was going to be a huge bomb at the box office. There were no merchandising done whatsoever. The only thing you could get was this Treasury comic that Roy and Howard Chaykin did, right? And Steve Leialoha. So it became like one of the best-selling Marvel books of all time at that time, because it was the only Star Wars merchandise available out there, right?
Yeah.
But then I remember all of us going to see it at the Lowe's Theater in New York. This was in '77. I'm like in the bullpen, and everyone's like, "Where are we going?" And everyone's gonna go watch this new movie, whatever it is, you know. And everybody came out of there like, with like their minds blown, right? You know, because for the time it was just, you know, the technology was incredible.
Yeah.
And so, Star Wars actually saved Marvel once from bankruptcy.
Cool. I thought it was Blade.
Huh?
I thought it was.
No, well, Blade helped too, but the Blade was later. But it was Star Wars that actually saved the day.
Okay.
So you can thank Roy Thomas for that.
Cool. I'm not going to go in through all this. I just made it for the audience, but I think we should maybe.
He's so industrious.
Yeah.
God.
I think
Brother, I'm like so impressed by this. I mean, holy shit.
Where do you want to start? What do you want to start? Is it the Bob is 20
Okay,
years
Frederick
old and sells
Wortham,
comics?
he's a dick. Okay, I was born then, that's true. I I don't usually admit to that. Okay, so I'm 4 years old. That wasn't the issue of challengers, but that is definitely a challenge. No, that's okay. That's fine, right? So that's correct too. You got all that.
Your first uncredited ink job at Marvel.
That's not true.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, what was?
Because I inked. No, my first credited ink job.
Yeah.
Was at Charlton at 75.
Yeah, okay.
In 75. I did by Dawn's Early Light. It was in a book called Beyond the Grave. It was one of those horror anthologies, and I inked Charlie Nichols, and it was 1975, and it was the very first published work that I ever did. So
okay.
That is slightly off. What did I do in that book? The Avengers.
A page.
Oh, Savage Sword?
Yeah.
A page.
A single page.
Really? I have no recollection. But you think about it, I've done 6,500 comic books credits to my name. It's like, how could I possibly remember all of it? I noticed that Cheezosaurus Rex is missing.
Cheezosaurus?
Yes, I did a comic book for the Kraft cheese company in America. They have a dinosaur made out of cheese, and like, you haven't lived until you've read my comic book about the cheesy dinosaur. Yes, I've done a lot of weird stuff.
Okay.
The fanzine's true. 20 years old, out of my apartment. Then I met John Byrne and Roger Stern, and the three of us became the crux of the CPL gang, as we called it. And that led to us working at Charlton, where I did, by Dawn's Early Light, my very first inking job. John Byrne, he took over a book, he did Mirage 2000 backup in E-Man, and he also took over a book called Doomsday +1, which is his first work. Roger Stern also was writing those anthology, Drippy House of Gooey Death. So that's how all of us made the transition. While I was still working as a background inker, too, because you couldn't make any money at Charlton. They didn't pay anything, It was like minor league football or something. You did it for love of the game,
But I have marked down that you did your transition to DC in 1977, but that's not correct either, because you were actually working at Marvel and DC at the same time,
Yes,
right?
I was. Because I am, like all comic book artists, a whore. You pay me $5, I'll come work for you. The pay was so low back then. We were getting somewhere between $19 and $25 a page to do full, artwork. So if someone offered you $5 more a page, you went. So there was a while where I bounced back and forth between two companies, and I finally settled on. Paul Levitz offered me a contract, and that's where I created The Huntress with him. We're doing All-Star comics. And that's been a lovely experience because I get royalties on her now for 45 years, including t-shirts. DC's much better about that sort of thing. You play her in a video game, I get paid. So it's a lovely, lovely deal. It took Marvel 10 years to match that deal. That's why they lost so many of their creators. In that time, because they kind of refused to start doing creator royalties. Part of me wants to sit in the audience and just watch this. This is like so awesome. I know. I mean, this is really. He really did a great job here.
Cool. But then the DC explosion and implosion happened.
Basically, I got word because Paul was working.
Can you tell what to everyone you know?
Well, what happened was
implosion explosion.
This is in '78. DC had expanded a whole bunch. They were doing a bunch of titles like Starfire and I can't remember all of them. Claw the Unconquered. Stuff you never heard of. They had expanded out their line, which bombed miserably, and they were hard up for artists. They were starting to pluck people out of the Philippines, where they were paying them pennies on the dollars to do the art in these books. So eventually, the chickens came home to roost, and we got word. Paul actually told me that they were going to cut DC's line in half. They were just going to cancel all these books, and they were all the ones that I was doing. And that's why I told David. I said, David, you're about to be out of a job. I said, once you come with me, I know people at Marvel. Once you come with me, David had never read a Marvel comic in his life. He was always a DC guy. So he was a little unsure about that, but I said, listen, don't worry, I'm a Marvel guy, I got your back. We'll go there and we'll just continue what we're doing with some other title.
And you started on Iron Man.
Well, because they were going to cancel it.
Yeah.
What happened? In the old days before comic stores, you all remember this, right? Everything was on spinner racks. You've seen the old spinner racks, right? In movies and whatever. I don't know if they still have them anymore. You have a spinner rack?
No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Besides, they're really rough on the books too. So, here's how it worked. They would. So inconspicuous. How distribution worked in the United States in the 1970s was that you would sign a contract for 12 months with the Mafia. The Mafia did all distribution of magazines and books and newspapers and stuff like that. So it didn't really matter what the title was, more or less. It was kind of like Marvel would make a deal on Avengers. They'd sign a contract for 12 issues, and here's what they would do. They'd print the book. We worked 6 months in advance. That's how far we used to work ahead. That's why we knew what was going to be on the covers of the books, because we already knew what the story was going to be, because we worked that far ahead. The reason why you get nothing but pin-up covers now is because they only work a month ahead. They have no idea what the story is going to be 6 months from now, so they just do pin-up covers, if you ever wondered that. So anyway, the idea was you sign a deal with the mob. What they do is the books come in these big pallets. They break them down and ship them to the drugstores and the supermarkets or wherever they're going to go. They go up on the shelf for 30 days on the spinner rack. Then what they would do is they would come back. The distributor would rip off the cover, the upper third of the cover, where the logo is. You see where like Ant-Man is there on his shirt? It would rip that part off, and that would be a receipt for credit to back to the publisher, right? They would get credit for every book not sold, and then all those would go into a bin. They would be mashed up and turned into new comic books, and that's how it worked. That's why it surprises me so many of these comics have survived. I don't know how they did this, considering they were always ripped off from. So about 6 months into any contract year, they kind of know what's going to live and what's going to die. Well, Iron Man was going to die. It was on the chopping block. So what they would do in the case of this was, George Tuska was the artist on Iron Man for a long time. They would take their A-list guys off, and like I said in the video, and move them onto a new book, a new project, and then they put schmucks like me on there to finish off the 6-month run. That's why I had because when I was 11 years old, I was writing and drawing my own Iron Man comics, because I said, because the book, I hated it. It was never right in the way I looked at it. It's like, Stan never actually wrote Iron Man. He kind of came up with the idea and gave it to his brother Larry, who is no Stan Lee. Larry's idea of a good Iron Man story was he had him fight like 30-foot caveman robot made by aliens. So, and it never looked like armor. And I love shiny stuff. I always loved drawing shiny stuff. And so I made a Doomquest. That story was something I did when I was 11 years old. I came up with that story when I was 11 years old. Did it on notebook paper. I wish I had kept that. Can you imagine? So when they gave us the book, I asked the editor, I go, can we change a few things? And they're like, we don't care, we're going to cancel the book. Do what you want, as long as it's not crazy. And 6 months later,
you made him to an alcoholic.
Don't do anything crazy.
But that's not crazy.
No, I know.
What's crazy is having 50 heart attacks and living.
Yeah.
That heart attack thing was, even in the 70s, they had heart transplants. And you telling me that this guy, as brilliant as he is, couldn't fix his own damn heart? That was a great thing for the 60s, but it had outlived its usefulness, the heart problem. And we were creating a new corporate world. Yeah. And this was, every book has to have a hook. We were talking about this last night with friends over dinner. What's the hook with Spider-Man? Well, Spider-Man is a child pretending to be a grown-up man superhero. He has teenage problems like every kid has, right? It's like, that's the hook that makes him different than any other superhero. He's Spider-Man, but he's really just a kid, you know, struggling to, you know, fight superheroes and pretending to be an adult superhero, but he's not. You know, Tony Stark has a hook, you know, because he's a modern-day King Arthur. He has his kingdom, he has his Knights of the Round Table, you know, he has his shiny armor, and he's plagued by doubts and guilt and things that eventually, like Arthur, you know, threaten to destroy everything he creates. And that's why I've always kind of seen him as a modern day King Arthur. So that was kind of the approach I took with it.
Yeah.
You know, so the alcoholism just became, comics are a reflection of what's going on in society. We don't actually create, we're mirrors. And at that particular time, the Betty Ford Clinic had opened up in America, and people were openly talking about alcohol and drug abuse for the first time. You know, if Aunt Sadie had a problem before, we would just hide it. You know, Aunt Sadie's just had a little bit too much happiness juice. She's going to be fine. But you know, people were starting to talk about it, and it seemed like this was perfect for this particular character. We never really met with resistance. The only thing we were told to do was do it right. You know, what people didn't know was that was me. I've been sober for most of my life now, but that was me. That's why this story resonates so much. It still does to this day. I've become the unofficial spokesman for sobriety in the comic industry. I still get letters all the time from people who are struggling with alcohol and drug abuse, asking, you know, they are saying that I put this on my wall just to remind me not to be like this guy, you know. The letters we got on this, we got bags of mail. This is before emails, right? So they come in with like these mail bags filled with mail from people saying, I thought my dad was like an evil guy until I read this story and I realized he was sick. You know, I mean, it did a lot to open up people talking about drug and alcoholism. It was the first time we ever dealt with it in a comic. I wanted that sword of Damocles to hang over his head, you know, like it does with every alcoholic. It seemed to me like Tony's worst enemy is always himself. And that's why Hawk, I think in the movie, portrayed that so perfectly. You know, he's always his own worst enemy. But like most brilliant guys, they're all gunnier than a shithouse rat, you know? So Tony has a destructive side, and we thought that would really work out well in this, and it did, obviously.
But The Demon in the Bottle was in 1979, so
It was on newsstands, yeah, it was before comic shops.
How did you get this dire topic through the comics code?
They did not. You see it right there? They didn't say a word.
Wow.
Yep, not a word. You know, I think at that point they just didn't care anymore. They knew we were going to do it anyway. Yeah. Because I know the heroin issue that the Stan did, he ran it without the Comic Code Authority. But I told you it was toothless. This is '79, right?
Yeah.
79. They were already becoming a toothless entity, but we would have run the story without them.
Yeah.
You know, at least there was no condoms on that dresser.
But at that time, there was also Sweden drinking on Dallas. Sweden.
Yeah. But see, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
Modern popular culture is just a reflection of what's going on in society. I mean, you think about Days of Future Past. Well, why was Days of Future Past like so popular? Because the Terminator was the biggest movie in America. You know, it's like so. You know, Chris does the X-Men version of it, which was a huge hit, right?
Yeah.
We always kind of reflect what's going on out there. I mean, I try to be more original than that, but you know, the point of it is, it's always mirrors. It's always about mirrors. We're not the geniuses that we like to think we are. We're really just reflecting what's happening in life. Yeah, exactly. At least we were back then. That was a great time. I mean, you know, the time when Iron Man took off. By that time, book was selling like crazy. But then Walt Simonson had taken over Thor. Frank Miller was taking over Daredevil. Byrne and Claremont were doing the X-Men. And what was happening was Bill Sienkiewicz and Doug Munch were doing Moon Knight. What was happening was that we were redefining the Marvel Universe for an older generation. That you guys, the people that were kids when Stan had read, had now got to college, and they demanded a more sophisticated storylines. And so we were in the process, this generation of Bronze Age, of redefining the whole Marvel Universe. We didn't realize it at the time. You know, it was just that we were just kind of heading into new territory and realizing that we were creating more complex stories because our audience was getting older.
So comics was starting growing up
Yeah,
here.
yeah, no, but we always remembered that there are new people every day, unlike now. But then one of the things that was always drilled in our head was every issue is the first issue. You have to always introduce your characters and not presume that they read everything else. So that was one of Stan's edicts that stayed throughout my tenure there.
Yeah.
That, you know, introduction to character is everything. That's the Marvel way. Yeah.
You made Iron
If
Man.
you have any questions, by the way, about any of this stuff, you can just blurt, all right? Because we're all friends, right? Except for those two drunk Americans.
We're gonna have a break in 10 minutes.
Yeah, somebody go scrape them off the sidewalk.
But I do have a question, and you've probably heard it many times before, but when you were new in the business, John Byrne made a negative comment about your inking.
Why do you guys like? I got the same thing from Thomas today. You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
He said your artwork was too slick and your men looked queer.
Well, he's a gay. It's a queer.
Yeah, he's a gay. Yeah.
No, but you know what it was though.
No.
The truth. John came through the ranks with Roger and I, right?
Yeah.
The Hulk Annual was the thing that first put the three of us on the map. John's fantasy was to be inked by Tom Palmer or Joe Sinner, one of the Marvel greats. He had never been inked by any one of those giant, guys. Instead, he gets Bobby Layton from Indianapolis, who did the fanzines with him. That's what he was pissed about.
Okay.
No, also the fact that John liked to draw this little cartoon slit for a mouth, and I said, people have upper lips. So he thought giving them an upper lip meant they were gay,
Yeah.
which is very homophobic, by the way.
Yes, it is.
All right? And it's like, but, I'm not John's mother, so I can't scold him. But, I never respond to these things.
No.
No, because, if somebody wants to get in a pissing match, it's fine, but there's nothing to be solid. They drag me down to that level, and I don't want to go to that level. I've always ignored when people have said negative stuff about me, because I can take it. I'm in the art field. I'm in the commercial art field. People are going to be negative. I know why he said that, though, and it's absolutely true. He wanted one of the Marvel greats to ink him, not me.
Yeah. But you turned out to be one of the Marvel.
That book was a hit. People still talk about it.
Yeah.
All right, but that was the one story that put the three of us on the map
Yeah.
before Iron Man. And so whether John likes it or not, because it did him a world of good. All right,
Yeah.
and it's just one story. We go on to the next one. Shut up, John. Grow up. We go on to the next job. Right? That's all we do. We do the best we absolutely can, and we go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know about it. I don't care. Absolutely don't care. Besides, a gay Hulk would be a great story just on its own, right? If I was really going to make him gay, man, I would have gayed him up big time.
Cool. 10 more minutes before we take a break.
Yeah. So we're going to go to the phase 2.
I think
This is phase 2.
this is phase 2.
Because what happened in Iron Man, in my revamping of the character, the first thing was to fix Tony Stark. And part of that was to make him into a rock star. To make him into like one of the coolest guys you ever meet. That's why we even did an issue where he never became Iron Man, where he was in Monaco, it's like he's James Bond. Because all was part of it. And I gave him a friend, something he never had before. Not an employee, but an actual friend and roadie. I just said, what millionaire doesn't have a posse, And he's never had a real friend that he could find him and stuff like that in the history of this stuff. He had servants and things, but you know, Rhodey was somebody who would stand up to him, you know, and they had a brotherhood between the two of them, you know, and that was important to me. And there wasn't enough African American characters in Marvel Universe, you know, so in comes Rhodey. But the first thing was to basically fix the premise of the book. The first year, up till Demon in the Bottle, was to create a new world for Tony Stark. The second phase was to make him not a wimp anymore. All right, part of the problem was he was getting beat by like guys in animal suits. You know, it's like, you know, it's like Doggy Man and Kitty Man and all this stuff, and they would like beat him up. And it's like, that stuff would drive me crazy. I go, you kidding? This guy should be one of the most powerful guys in the Marvel, you know, universe. And so that's where the idea came from. I said, let's have him take on the Hulk, one-on-one, and beat him. You know, the most powerful character in the Marvel universe. And that's also where we established his friendship with Bruce Banner, that they carried up into the movies. It all started right with these three stories. Yeah, so the famous punch heard around the world, right, around the Marvel universe is in the second issue. He puts all his power into one punch and knocks the Hulk out, which they did in Avengers 2.
Yeah.
This was basically to power Iron Man up. We had planned this all along to get him to the point where we would show that he's no longer the guy who has a heart attack every other issue, but now he is somebody to be reckoned with. You know.
So after beating the Hulk, he was ready for Doom?
The character, he should have been his arch enemy from the beginning. I mean, you think about it. This is the antithesis of Iron Man. He has a kingdom. He's a genius. He is the dark Iron Man, right? And as a kid, I'm like, why is it? He never fought Dr. Doom. Never fought Dr. Doom. You know, and it's like, nobody saw that. Are you kidding? Right, 11 years old, I drew this story on notebook paper, like I said. And one day Dave and I were plotting stuff, and I told him about this, and he goes, that's brilliant. He goes, I love that. You know, so he goes, let's do it. So we went in and we pitched the editor, and they loved it so much that they decided to make the 150th issue a double size. I go, thanks a lot for the extra work. And Johnny did such an incredible job doing breakdowns on it too. I mean, but this is seeing a childhood dream come to life, you know, because I loved King Arthur. But Dr. Doom should be his nemesis. And they never did. They never did that. I couldn't, for the life of me, figure that out. They are literally two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, and you got to do it again.
Well, yeah, because the idea is, no, we plotted it as a trilogy.
Yeah, okay.
We thought, we wanted to do this whole thing that centers around Excalibur, one that takes place in the past, one that takes place in the present, one that takes place in the future.
Yeah.
So when we got around to the next anniversary issue, 50 issues later, we did Doomquest Part 2. And then when I came back, after David Mayswell said, you got to go back to Marvel and do Iron Man again. You know, he's at Marvel Studios, I wasn't going to do anything. So we actually got a chance to do the final version, which takes place in present day. So that was the fun. So it took 3 decades, but we got it done.
Yeah.
You know? But that's, it never made sense to me why Dr. Doom wasn't his major nemesis.
That makes sense.
And nobody saw it. I mean, it's like one of those crazy things. Like, look! I mean, it's Dr. Doom! You know, it's like the Fantastic Four, you know, it's like, yeah. And I didn't make him look gay, though, okay?
No,
Dr. Doom is not gay, all right?
No, but Chris Claremont once said that back in the 70s there was if a character was created in a specific series, they were very tight about using them outside the series they were created in. And Dr. Doom was created in Fantastic Four, so did you have any trouble getting to use Dr. Doom?
No, because that's... By this time, my book was more popular than Fantastic Four. So that was easier.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
But also, no, that proprietary thing, Chris says that because all X-Men characters belong to him.
Yeah.
And, he always felt proprietary about them. But that's his feelings. That's not the truth.
Okay.
I mean, he was not happy when I did X Factor. Trust me. All right. but he doesn't own those characters. Marvel does.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. I mean, I don't know anybody who want me to go back and not do the Doomquest story. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, because it's one of the landmark stories, in my run of Tony Stark, and I think it also defined Doom. I think we tried to portray Doom as a more noble character than he's been portrayed in a lot of the stuff.
Yeah, and he was magic based, and Iron Man was science based.
Well, that's the one thing that we did with Tony was like Tony hates magic, right? The fact that Dr. Doom utilizes both technology and magic, made him a worthy adversary.
Yeah.
In that regard. It just seemed like a natural fit. I mean, sometimes I don't want to say I was born to do it, but sometimes you feel like you're at the right place at the right time,
Yeah.
And I just had a clear vision of what this book should be. And it still resonates to this day, So I'm very, very grateful to everybody for that, Heinrich.
How was it working with John Richard Jr. because you were both
He's my brother.
early in your career when you started in Iron Man?
He's my brother, man.
Yeah.
We started out with Iron Man 116 was my first. It was his second, and it was kind of like Johnny didn't have a handle on it either. He was scared. Living in his father's shadow was bad enough, okay, and he's done well outside of that. For sure, Johnny's still at the top of his game, but at the time, I just told him this. I go, look, bro, and we hit it off from both. I mean, we're still friends to this day, right? I talked to him right after his dad died to see how he was doing. He was holding up pretty well, but Johnny and I just had a rapport from the beginning. Also, we liked the same things. Johnny was like, we liked. Having fun, girls, that kind of thing, And it's like, we were guys, we were in our 20s, we were having a blast in New York City, right? So, he was my bro, man. So we hit it off immediately. So he knew what not to do. He knew that telling the story was the most important part, that I would add all the splash and the glitter and all that sort of thing. The trouble was, after a while, Johnny wanted to spread his wings. It's like he was living in my shadow a bit because, Iron Man was my book, and I understand it. So he went on to do his own stuff, and more power to him. He did come back a couple times, it's like, because he did like working on it, but it was just that, he really felt like he needed to he wanted to be seen more, and he wasn't being seen on Iron Man because I would overpower everything. Because I had a clear look. Because it didn't matter who penciled the book, I was going to ink it the way I thought it should be, right? So there was no hard feelings or anything when he left. I missed him, but Jerry Bingham did a good job when he came in, and then we had a variety of people, but they all did their best work possible. But they all knew who was calling the shots. This is my baby, man. So. Yeah.
Where did the idea about Tony Stark hating magic came from? You said that Tony Stark hates magic, and there was...
Oh, it was from this whole Doom thing, because it's like when the first time they pull it out on him, it turns into a dragon.
Yeah.
And he's got no defense for that. It's like, and besides, it's like to him, being an engineer and a scientist and a physicist, pulling a dragon out of your ass is just something you're not prepared for, okay? And it's like, it was. We wanted to do that. We wanted to show the scientific mind versus the mystical mind, and that was one of the advantages that Doom had over him. That magic creeps him out because he can't. And that, to me, that's the only two things that really work in comics. Your heroes, if they're technologically based, I can do enough BSing to make you believe that armor is real. I used enough, and you did, didn't you? I mean, you believed in it. I used enough technical words and things like that. You know, I told you it's a microscopic chainmail with a magnetic field, you know, and everybody, you know, they bought into that, right? But then characters like Doctor Strange, you accept it because you don't have to explain how it works, because magic is an unquantifiable thing. So when those two meet, it's oil and water, you know. It's like, and that's why I wanted to emphasize that. So yeah, it came out of that story where Tony, magic creeps him out because he can't figure it out. That's why he doesn't like Doctor Strange in the movies. they kept that whole thing of magic just creeps him out, you know.
We're gonna have a short break now. 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Så nogle gange
Så-
så stræk benene eller komme
Ja. Let's start up again.
Så, Jannik.
Ja,
Spændende.
cool.
Now we're going to show some home movies of me in Milwaukee. No.
I think we're gonna stay in the comic business.
Okay,
Uh,
suit yourself.
I was thinking about talking about the Armor Wars and Star Wars, or should I start with a question?
How do you get a submarine into space? You cannot. And that was the first major hurdle that I wanted to overcome after powering Iron Man up.
Yep.
The next step was make the armor more believable. I grew up in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is a cornfield with a racetrack in the middle of it. The racetrack is the Indianapolis 500, and every year they go around in circles till they just turn left for about 500 miles. Really exciting stuff. And that's all they're really known for. But it got me thinking early on that, okay, there's a big difference between a Formula One racer and a stock car, or the car that you drive. And how do you get a submarine into space? Well, the truth is you cannot get a submarine into space, and that was very, very, very good, because that was my argument, that in order for Tony Stark's armor to be credible, it can't just do everything. Because, you know, if I'm fighting Potato Salad Man and I happen to have a potato masher attached to my armor where I can smash you into mashed potatoes, no, it's just too convenient. It's too convenient to say, I'm going to fly into space. How many here have been into space? Right? Well, going into space should be a big deal. It's a big deal even now. But they would have him fly into space. Well, first of all, it's boot jets. Jets don't work in space. Secondly, every hole that he has in that armor is something he can get sucked out of. So, you know, we have to, oh wow, you found that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That thing.
That's quite some armors there.
That's the actual size of the drawing.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's huge. It took me 3 weeks to do. But that was actually a commission for somebody. It really wasn't for
That's
Marvel.
so cool.
Marvel
That's
saw
so
it and
cool.
bought it again, so I sold it twice.
Cha-ching.
No dummy.
Who paid more?
The guy. The guy who commissioned it, because I didn't like him. I charged him a lot. I could have bought that Volvo when I got it. So
So
no,
Marvel
they-
bought it
they-
and used it for
they used
colors.
it. Yeah, they used it for the put together. Are you selling those in the store? The covers that fit together to make one big picture?
Normally, no.
Really? What's the latest? They were publishing them on the newer
tried
books.
one as a calendar over Christmas, and nobody really wanted it, so nobody had a wall big enough. It was full of comics.
Well, anyway, so we have a side point. So we're talking about all the various armors I created over the years, and this is most of them, right? But the space armor was the very first, and that shocked fans when it came out, because they're like, you dared to change the armor or whatever. But the point was, it was the I had always read like Scientific American. We were having this conversation because Merritt was saying, well, don't you read fiction? I go, no, because I don't want to be influenced by other people's vision of what the world should be. To me, taking it from reality is far more important. And so I would read Scientific American every month, and I would look at articles, and it's very dry, boring stuff, but occasionally the germ of something really spectacular was in there. And one of them was talking about building newer, more flexible spacesuits and things of that nature. So I said, okay, if we're going to go into space with Tony, let's make it a big deal. So we introduced the very first variant armor, which now they do every other issue, you know, but I was the very first person to create specific armors for specific tasks, because that's what machines are like in real life. A submarine does not go into outer space. You know, I mean, they serve the same function, but it's an entirely different thing. And so there was an undersea armor, there was a space armor, there was a stealth armor for him flying into hostile territories. There were basically armors created for specific tasks, which doesn't stretch credibility at all, right? I mean, when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. The inspiration for it, though, came from when I was a little kid. They did this. There was a Batman annual that was done back in the 60s, and it showed the many uniforms of Batman. And he had a green one so he could hide in trees. He had a white one so he could hide in snow. And I'm like, it was the dumbest story in the world, but I remembered it, and I said, like, great idea, wrong character, you know? And so that was one of the things that inspired me to start creating the armor. And that, I wanted you guys to feel that it was believable, you know? So that's when the Hulkbuster came along. It was like, even though I didn't create the Hulkbuster, it was an offshoot of that whole designing something for a specific task.
Yeah. And then people started stealing the technology.
Well,
right?
That's the most sincere form of flattery, isn't it?
And Armor Wars, it's actually, it started as a series. They were going to serialize it on Disney+,
well,
right?
go back to the comic for a minute, because you got to understand what happened.
Yeah.
All right, so David and I did Iron Man from Iron Man 116 to 153. Now 153, to fulfill my goal of being a writer and artist, I left Iron Man at the height of its popularity to go do Hercules, Prince of Power, because Hercules was the very first miniseries. They offered me to do the very first miniseries in Marvel history, right? And I jumped at it because it was a chance for me to finally write and draw and do the whole thing myself, which was always my goal. So I left Iron Man. And we really thought we left Iron Man in capable hands and it was going to be fine. So I did Hercules. The first one was a huge success, and it spawned a second series, which I didn't plan on doing. So I'm on for another 4 issues the next year. So actually, you got those backwards. This was first. That was second.
Sorry.
Okay. So I did the 2 Herc miniseries, and by the time I had finished them, and then I got drafted into the Secret Wars.
Yep.
Yeah, I was the only person ever drafted into that war. I didn't do it voluntarily because I was on contract to Marvel, and being on contract meant you had a page quota that you had to fill every month. They didn't care what you did; you just had to do X amount of work. And at the time, I was actually working with Dennis Cowan on a relaunch of Power Man and Iron Fist. But they're saying, Layton, you don't have a regular book right now. You got to jump on, because Mike Zeck's having a nervous breakdown. And so I wound up getting drafted into the Secret Wars. So I wound up doing that. Anyway, so by the time I got done with that, I think I went on to X Factor, didn't I?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, the Toy Race and the Secret Wars.
Right.
And then we have
X Factor. So after I finished Secret Wars, I wanted to put the original X-Men back together. That was like my next project. So, and I only did 1 through 5, by the way. You got 1 through 8.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, and this was the worst. This was one of the worst experiences of my life. All right, the first issue broke all-time Marvel sales records. It sold 750,000 copies. They didn't know what to do with that. They were losing their minds. Every chef was in the kitchen trying to tell us to bake this way, bake it that way, because they were going nuts because of the kind of money this book was going to bring in. They got the solicitations, and it was crazy. Then we also had Chris Claremont who says, "Oh, you can't do this because they're my characters. I have proprietary rights to all the X-Men," you know? And it's like, no, you don't. Watch, you know, because we're going to do this. I actually didn't bring Jean Grey back, though. I can't take credit for that. That was John Byrne being evil, all right? And getting back to Chris Claremont by bringing her, he and Kurt Busiek came up with the idea how to bring her back.
Okay.
And Kurt Busiek runs down to me in the hallways and he goes, "I hear you're putting the X-Men back together." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "How'd you like Jean Grey back?" I go,
She's dead.
"Yeah, she's dead." I originally had planned for Dazzler to become the female member, but I was doing a revamp of her. I was going to call her name.
You were drawing Dazzler at the time, right?
No, I wasn't drawing Dazzler. No, I just was going to use her.
Okay.
She wasn't. Her book had been canceled, but I was going to change her powers and call her Strobe, and give her all sorts of light powers, and besides just being able to dance in roller skates, because that's not really a superpower. You can see that anywhere in Copenhagen, right? But what happened was, so when Kurt came to me and said, we're bringing Jean Grey back in Fantastic Four, I'm no dummy, so I did it. But from that point on, the X-Men, this was not by the same editorial staff that does the X-Men books. So Mike Carlin was my editor, and he got into a row over the first issue with the editor-in-chief, and he wound up being fired. And it went downhill from there. And I have one standard rule about comics, because the money was never great in the early days of doing comics. But when it stops being fun, you walk. Because you do this because you love it. You know, and if you're not loving it, I've never done it for the money. You know, and it's like, so as good as this book was selling, they made every issue of this a nightmare. Because it would have to pass through the X office. And so the X office would bounce every plot I come up with. They "Oh, you can't use that character. We're using it somewhere down the road in the future." And so by the time I got to the fifth issue, I did the fifth issue and the annual. And I said, "You know what? I'm done." I said, I hate this. I hate this whole antagonism. I don't need this in my life. You know, I don't want this. And I walked. First time I ever quit a book like that, you know, just walked. I said, get Wheezy to do it, you know, it's like, I'm done.
And this was your last work for Marvel before Valiant?
No.
Oh.
That's where Armor Wars came in. So
Ah,
that's
okay.
how I'm getting to it. See, you got the chronology wrong. It just so happened that Mark Grunwald, bless his departed soul, was one of the greatest. But Mark Grunwald said, "Hey, I heard you walked off X Factor." Yeah. See, the time is just about right, you see?
Yeah.
He goes, "Guess what?" He goes, "Iron Man's in the toilet again." I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, they really kind of ignored what you and David did, and it's like the book is failing." He goes, "How about coming back?
Saving Iron Man.
Put the old band back together. Okay, let's get the Beatles back together, right? You know." So I talked to David, and I said, "Well, if we go back, we're going to have to, one, fix everything that the other people had done again. And I said, we're going to have a really great story, something that really sets it apart. We can't just come back and start doing Iron Man stories. I said, we need something." So we sat down and we came up with this whole idea of making Tony go rogue. I mean, it's like, he has so much to lose. The idea of him finding out, we had planted the seeds in the early issues, by the way. We had planted those seeds in our first run that Justin Hammer basically found a way to hack his armor and basically steal the technology and has been selling it to the highest bidder. Some of them good, some of them bad. And so the idea that Tony tries to recapture his technology through every legal means he has, but he runs into political problems, he runs into legal problems, all this kind of stuff, till finally he just reaches his breaking point and goes rogue. And basically just starts breaking the law and taking the law into his own hands. a guy like Tony would definitely be capable of something like that. We wanted him to have that sort of crisis of conscience, like what I'm doing is ultimately right, how I'm doing it is wrong. That's why you see the issue with him and the captain. That's where Civil War started, because the very first real clash between him and Cap over idealism started there, and they expanded on that later to create the whole Civil War thing. But that he and Cap had totally different ideologies that didn't mix. So we came to them, we pitched the idea of doing Armor Wars, and so that, you know, that turned out to be a tremendous success as well.
Yeah.
The same as Demon in a Bottle for us was, you know. So and as a result, we got a different Tony Stark and a new armor out of it as well, one unhackable armor. The Mark 14, which is my favorite, by the way, the one coming out of the goo. That's my absolute favorite of all the ones I've done, because it's an homage to the old one, but with a newer, sleeker design. So I always kind of love that one the most. So yeah, and then now Marvel wants to do a movie.
Yeah.
There you
How did you get Barry to do the last issue?
Because he was my buddy. Barry and I were.
Because he doesn't
Okay,
do
this
much,
is personal. This is personal.
he doesn't do much Marvel work.
Right. Well, this is personal. So, if I may, I'm going to take a moment to talk about my personal life, which I normally don't do. Being a divorced father of one, my daughter lived with her mother in Woodstock, New York, which also happened to be the residence of one Barry Windsor-Smith. So I had knew him because he lived in the neighborhood. So when I had visitation from my daughter, Barry would say, "Why don't you stay with me? And Sean, you can have Shauna here." He had like a chalet by the creek that was beautiful, filled with armors, and like you would think Barry Windsor-Smith lived, you know, in like a small castle, right? You know. And Shauna called it Barry's Magic Castle, you know. And so she was 9 years old at the time, right? So we would stay with Uncle Barry, and over the weekend I'd have her, and Barry would cook, and we were pals, right? Before we ever worked together. So when I started working on this, it was one of those, "Come on, Barry, come on, do something with me, man. I go, come on, just jump in and let's do one book together. We've been friends for years, and we haven't ever actually done anything." And he's all like, you know, so he's so British. He's like, we'll try it. And so we decided that we would do this follow-up, epilogue, and let Barry plot with us or whatever. And it was awesome. Of course, I was scared out of my mind inking him, okay, because his style is so, you know, far away from my technical style, right?
Organic.
Yeah, very organic art style. And as it turns out, it kind of worked. You know, I had to adapt, but it actually worked. And Barry was very happy with the thing, and that kind of started. The next year, we did an issue of Iron Man where I penciled it and he inked it. You know, and it's like that was an incredible learning experience for me as well, because he automatically fixed all the things I did wrong. I could see all the things I was doing wrong because he naturally, without thinking, "Oh, that hand sucks," and he would just draw a real hand there, you know. But I could see style is something everyone talks about. We look in this room and we see all these styles of art, right? What Dickie used to say to me, and I'm good, every day I quote Dick Giordano every day of my life, that style is what you do consistently wrong. And it's true. You look at guys that are highly stylized, like a Jack Kirby. You know, sausage fingers, ironboard legs, right? But every character in every panel looks the same. It's a consistent shorthand that an artist creates that tells you, okay, I've created my own language. All right? And in this language, I am Jack Kirby, or I am Walt Simonson, or I am John Byrne. You know, it's like, but it's those things that, because they consistently do wrong, and that gives it, quote, style. Because you've seen guys who draw perfect, like photo real, and it's boring. And in comics, a lot of times it's very boring looking. It's the little exaggerations and the little things they do consistently wrong. As I used to tell my art students, I used to hold up a picture of this beagle that John Romita did. I mean, perfectly rendered, realistically rendered with the side of the spin, like a photograph, right? And then I hold up Snoopy. And I said, your brain says dog when you see both of those images. You decide as an artist where in between those two you're going to land, right? How you're going to create something. But as long as you create a consistent language, it can be Snoopy or the highly rendered dog. It doesn't matter. So Barry had an incredible style. I can't say that he drew things wrong. He just drew things. He was out of my league in a lot of ways. Okay, but brilliant. And so we continued our friendship after that, and we worked together at Marvel, and then I wound up convincing him to go to Valiant.
Yeah, and I actually want to go there now.
Because we got to go back to Armor Wars, though.
Yeah, we can do that. If
All
you
right.
want to.
Because I have to tell you this much. This project is screwed. They don't know what to do with it. All right? It starts out as a TV show.
Yeah.
Now it's a movie.
Yes.
But now the writer's strike is on. Yasser Lester is supposed to write the thing, but he hasn't. I don't know if he's written the movie yet. If he hasn't written the movie yet, it's going to happen. This thing is screwed. But everybody says to me, I give it all the time, it's like, it's going to suck without Tony Stark. Well, that's because you're not using your imagination. To me, this is a better story. Tony had his genius, the wealth and wherewithal to combat the people who stole his stuff. Rhodey has none of that. All he has is his love for his dead brother, you know? And to me, that makes it a more interesting story. This could be better than the one we wrote, if it's done right. Because also, he's in the military. So if he crosses the line, he's going to wind up losing, everything. He's going to wind up, in a penitentiary somewhere. So, which wouldn't happen to Tony Stark necessarily. So this has potential to be a really good movie if it's done right. I look at it like, I could write this. I could write this movie, because I love the idea. He's an Avenger, and avenging his dead friend. What greater love is there than that, right? Risking everything for Tony's memory. Keeping, the one thing that Tony wanted to preserve was that technology. Keep it out of the hands of evildoers. Well, that's a good story. So hopefully we'll do it right. I don't have a lot of faith in it right now, but we'll see. Okay, now we can go on.
Yeah. Let's skip this part and go to Valiant.
What part are we skipping?
Secret Wars.
Oh, okay. No, just real quick. I designed the toys for Mattel, which was fun because I got to go to California and got to go to the little secret laboratories. By the way, the security for toy manufacturers is higher than the CIA. No, they fingerprint you, they retina scan you, they do all that. No, because industrial espionage in the toy business is huge. So their security was unbelievable. But I have
it was so often, so it's to this day.
I don't know. I don't know now, because I haven't been out of the toy business for a while. But Mattel, my first venture into the whole toy business. The thing was, the challenge I had. Oh, I did one issue of Star Wars because they would give you the Kenner toys as reference, and my daughter, who was 9, goes, "Dad, I want the Star Wars toys. They get walkers too." So I did one issue of Star Wars, issue 78. I did just so my daughter could get the Star Wars toys. And strangely enough, they lasted so long that her children played with them. They made toys that last back then, okay? The only trouble was I always had to play the bad guys. I always had to be like Boba Fett and Jabba the Hutt. And she got to be the good guys. I hated that. But yeah, so I did the Star Wars toys. And the challenge was, the reason why I had to redesign them was they only had 2 bodies. They had a big bulky body and slim body. And because they were cheap, right? So we had to redesign all the costumes so they would fit one of those 2 bodies. They could put a different head on it or whatever and paint it differently, but I had to design stuff that would fit those 2 body molds. So that was fun. But I got to, like I said, it was a new experience for me, and I love that. It was a chance to branch out into the toy business. We don't even have the George Romero movie in here either.
Did you design the Tower of Doom?
No, I did not design the Tower of Doom. No, they did that. I was just there for these were the models. That's one of the model sheets for the Kang figures.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Cool.
Yeah. All right.
Let's go to Valiant.
Well, you got Frank Miller in there somewhere. We're going to get back to Frank. What are we going to do?
Yeah, the modern Dark Age of comics.
Oh, yeah, let's do that because it takes us to Valiant, right?
Yeah, it does.
Let's talk about how Frank Miller ruined comics for everybody.
Yeah, well, in 1986, Frank Miller's Daredevil and Batman: The Dark Knight Returns came out.
And then everybody decided to do it. Everybody decided to go dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like every book had to be superhero heroin addicts. God knows what else. Yeah, Alan Moore didn't help either. And to me, comics were always fun. I mean, we love the Marvel Cinematic Universe because it's fun. You know?
Being heroin addict, wasn't that in the 70s or?
Well, yeah, it was, but that's not the point. The point of it is, this whole dark phase came along because Frank, who's clinically depressed, like absolutely, not that they weren't brilliant, they were brilliant, but you know, it's like everything became just this morose sort of like death and heartache and angst and that's not me. I mean, you can tell I'm a very mellow, depressed kind of guy who basically hates life and wants to die. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, Frank did great work, don't get me wrong. But he also, unfortunately, changed the face in the comics, what I consider not for the better. Because the whole dark phase that we went through went all the way up until we at least got to Valiant. And then Happy Days, Valiant, we decided, hey, we're going to do some upbeat stuff. Our characters aren't going to be morose and horrible and want to die necessarily. But because also, as you know, because Image launches, right? You got it there. The whole idea with Valiant was that everything was about art at that point. You know, Tom McFarlane and Jim Lee and all this kind of stuff, the X-Men books. It was all art, and the stories, nobody cared about the stories so much. I mean, the Image guys didn't even bother to write stories sometimes. They just drew stuff and then put words on it, you know? Seriously. It was kind of, we were the people that were saying, we got to get back to telling stories. Really important to go back about characters and telling stories in a confined universe, you know? So that was kind of, but Valiant got off to a rough start because things didn't go really well at first. There because
do you want to start with Bloodshot or?
Well, no. You got to when we talk about the early Valiant, you got to start with wrestling and Nintendo. Anybody remember that? You do. That was the great debacle where we blew everything, all the money that we had gotten from the venture capitalists on those two projects, and basically you couldn't give them away. Because my partners believed that those were such great, you know, franchises that comic books would sell like crazy.
Which characters was that?
The WWF and Nintendo, all, you know,
You
Mario.
started out with that?
Yeah, I was against it from Boo. I said, these people don't read. Nobody wants to read about Mario. They want to play Mario, you know? And I was right. You couldn't give those damn books away. I mean, they were, in fact, one of the books that they did actually cost more than what they were charging. You know, it was like, it wasn't a really smart deal. And so we had to go back to the well and finally get into the superhero business because we had the rights to the Gold Key characters, Magnus, Soul, and Turok. So that little debacle convinced us it's time to rock and roll. So that's when we started the superhero line. We had to take another $2 million out from the venture capitalists to do it. That's what happened. So XO was actually the first original character done for Valiant. Jim wanted me to create something that was Iron Man, but not Iron Man. So I gave it a lot of thought, and it was like I thought about when I was reading as a kid. I used to read books. I actually did read books. She gets upset with me because I only read nonfiction, right? But the Conan the Barbarians, the Robert E. Howard Conan the Barbarian novels with the Frazetta covers. When I was a kid, when I was 11 years old, man, those were the hottest things ever, man. They were so cool, and there was simulated sex in them and everything, you know. It's like that. So if you're 11-year-old, you're titillated by all the violence and the sex and stuff. And so I always had this passion for like Conan the Barbarian, right? Although I never got to actually do a memoir. I did a couple covers, that was it. So the idea of doing Conan, but combining him with the power of Iron Man was like the genesis of this. You know, the idea of having the world's most powerful weapon in the hand of a guy you can't reason with. It seemed like it'd be like a really fun thing. Plus using time dilation to pull him out of the past, 800 AD and put him in modern day by just being kidnapped by aliens, right? So that's kind of how he came about. And actually what happens, because that cover, you see, the helmet's slightly different. And when Barry came in, he said, he thought about the boxing helmets, the protector that they wear, and he said we should use that. And so Barry changed the helmet to it so it looked like more like a protective device than just a regular old helmet, which I loved. So I talked Barry into coming over to Valiant. He did it under the condition that he didn't work with Jim because he didn't trust Jim because he had troubles with him in Marvel. So I said, no, we're going to work together on it or whatever. But that didn't work out too well at first. Again, I don't want to get into politics of Valiant, but the point of it being is I wound up not doing the first 3 issues, and then they gave me the book back. And then the book took off after that. We got a regular artist on it, and then the real things started good. That was our flagship character.
Yeah, and there's a funny story about the name, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, you know about that?
Why is
Yeah.
it called XO?
Oh, because John Hartz, who was our VP of marketing, was a bona fide genius. He came up with the whole gold plan, where you can get gold books if as a reward, things like that. He came up with the whole unity thing and the fact that let's tell the whole story of the universe first, and give it away for free, to people, because it's that whole schoolyard junkie thing, right? If you're a pusher, give the kid the first one goes free, and then he'll come back and pay for the other one. It's true. John said, so it was just called Man of War. So John, in one of the meetings we're having, John says, what's the best-selling book out there right now? And I said, oh, it's Jim Lee's X-Men. He goes, it's an exoskeleton, right? And he goes, what if you called it XO Manowar? And I'm like, oh my God, I know what you're thinking. He goes, yes, then they will place the book right next to the X-Men in alphabetical order in the comic shops. And sure enough, they did, right? Now the funny part comes when Steve Lazarski, the president of the company, right? He gets a letter from Marvel saying to cease and desist. Steve was a lawyer by profession. So Steve's like, could you please tell me specifically what you're objecting to? And I said, we own the letter X. And Steve says, if that's the case, I'm going to trademark the rest of the alphabet and put you out of business. So we summarily ignored it, but they actually said that they owned the letter X, which was ridiculous. But that is one of the most brilliant pieces of marketing ever done in comics. And that's launched XO into becoming a flagship book.
Yeah.
But you knew that.
I know that. But
Wait, how you do that is amazing. You
Yeah.
must have done your research. You
I
did his
did.
research.
how about Turok? That was also one of the most popular titles you did, right?
Well, that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, for,
I
all,
heard you say
for,
that
for
in
the
a-
whole
in a
comic
podcast.
industry. Yeah, because
Why was that?
well, you see it right there. Turok sold 1.7 million copies, and this was my argument with my partners at Valiant all along. We had a deal that we would never sell more than 500,000 of anything because we knew from research that there were only 500,000 readers worldwide on this stuff. Anything else was speculator money, right? This is almost 2 million copies. Greed is a bitch. It will get you. And I got voted down. They said, we are going to accept this order. We had kept that for a while. We had actually stayed at that 500 limit, right? But this one was just too juicy. They just couldn't. The royalties for the artist on that one issue was over 200,000 euros. Just for the one issue. All right? That's how crazy it's, what crazy money we're talking about. All right? But it also was the beginning of the end for the comic industry because at the same time that came out, they launched Death of Superman. They were selling Death of Superman on QVC in collector cases and all this stuff. They had printed 7 million of them or something, some ridiculous number. And at some point, it's like the comic collectability is like the stock market. It's on perception. It's the perception that this book is collectible. You will go buy a dozen Ant-Man #1s, right? Because the idea that you're thinking, okay, down the road that's going to double in price and I can sell it or whatever like that. It's just like the stocks. The stock market is based on feelings. It's not really based on science, or on numbers or on math. It's based on how people are feeling confident about the stock or whether they're not. If the news is bad on a stock, the stock drops, right? Somebody along the line started dumping Death of Superman. And when that happened, they all started dumping every book they had bought these cases and cases of, which pretty much ended collectability in the United States. In the meantime, we had sold the company because the venture capitalists who gave us the $4 million had now made $30 million a year for 3 years. So $900 million plus whatever they're going to get for the sale of the company. And if you're a venture capitalist, that's a pretty good day, But as you know, if any of you know finances, venture capitalists are always short-term investors. They're using retirement funds or whatever to basically, help their clients, increase their share. So, unfortunately, the top bidder for the company was Acclaim, the world's worst video game company. I know, but I love what you're doing. It's a tripping out. Did you have stuff with me in my bad hairstyles? Because there was always a girlfriend involved.
This one?
Yeah. I mean, I had a perm, okay, because I was dating a hairdresser at the time. I am guilty of a lot of really bad hairstyles. Do you have the one with the mushroom cut?
Nope.
Okay, thank God.
I sense
My
that.
head actually looked like a penis. Women can just wrap me around their finger. I'm telling you. So where we were?
Yeah, we were right at the end, I think. Valiant Comics.
Okay,
was sold.
so yeah, we were
This
ordered to
thing.
sell the company. Unfortunately, Acclaim was a bad video game company to begin with. They had licensed stuff from overseas, right? From Konami and various other Japanese firms, but they wanted to own something themselves. They originally had gone to Image. They wanted to buy Image because they felt that fit their demographic. It was younger, hipper, whatever, right? Image, we're rebels. Go fuck yourself. They didn't want Image to win anything to do with it. So Greg Fishback, who was the chairman of the board of Acclaim, decided to buy us and turn us into Image, which I resisted. I mean, I really resisted. because I said our readers will turn away from us in droves if you turn away from doing stories and make it all flashy artwork or whatever. But so I wound up in a head-butting match with the CEO of the company. We wound up in court. I decided, what is my first rule? If it's not fun, get out. I gave back $1.7 million I got from the sale of the company and walked away because it wasn't fun anymore. And I don't regret that to this day, you know, because these guys were evil. I used to go to these board meetings, and they would laugh about screwing their employees over. I felt like I needed to take a shower afterwards. You know, I mean, there was that, and so I didn't like being part of it. And so after my first year, I had to wait 1 year for my stock to accrue, right? Because I was paid.
1 year?
I was paid stock, and well, I actually sat in my office and read boating magazines, but they were paying me like a godly sum of money to do nothing. That's when Deathmate happened. Okay, I had nothing to do with that. So I got plenty of money out of the deal. Don't worry, but I sold my claim stock I think at 26, and 2 years later it was a penny stock. So I got out just right there. So as a friend of mine said, you never got into it to get rich. You made more money than you ever thought you'd make in your life. Move on with your life. So I did. I bought my way out of the contract, and I moved to Florida, got married, got a dog, a boat. You saw in the video,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You know, and 9 months later, I'm bored out of my skull. You know, but I lived off the dividends of what I had. Put it, you know, socked away and didn't touch the principal, and you know, always right with the world. For a while.
Yeah.
Nothing lasts forever. And so what happened was, I'll tell you, and I guess since we're being all personal, is I used the same brokers that I had at Valiant to do my personal account. So in 2001, the American airline industry was in shambles. It was, Continental went under, a whole bunch of other airlines were about to go under. Congress was passing a bill that would subsidize all the airlines and make them healthy again by a government grant, right? Subsidies. Socialism, they don't know what that is, right? So my brokers decided to invest all my money in airline stocks. 3 days later, the Twin Towers fell.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all my money went up with those buildings. But you know, that's not the point. No, it's not the point. You know, it's like that's something I had no control over. That's an act of God, you know, or the devil, or whatever you want to call it. But the point of it is, I dealt with it. You know, it was fine. And it's like it took a while, but I'm well off again. You know, but it's like it's a good humbling experience. That's why I'm telling you guys. It doesn't matter if you're short. It doesn't matter if you're if you're rolling in dough or anything like that. You never know what's waiting around the next turn. But, you know, I've never been suicidal in my life, and I had plenty of reason to be. You know, because you just don't know what's waiting. It's like that's what's fun about this trip and being here with you people. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I have no idea. I have no plan, you know, and you can't change it, whatever is going to happen, you know. So, and that's why I'm sharing it with you, because this is the hand we get dealt. You know, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, but we make the best of it. That's all you can do. You know, that's why I'm sharing that with you guys, because I normally don't do that. But I just wanted you to understand that when it's not fun, you walk away.
I think we'll let it end on those words. Our time is up.
Well, you said retire, does he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You want to tell us about the production company?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that'll be my last thing. Okay, so as I told you, I started my own production company. And in the last 5 years, barring COVID, I've been running around the globe trying to raise money. chasing money to make movies. Well, one of the reasons why I'm not heading directly back to America after Korea is that our first feature film, we should start production sometime this fall in Sweden. We're shooting in Sweden. We have a Swedish production company working with us. A movie called The Helix that I wrote myself in the time I was in Hollywood, and we're finally going to get this movie made, it looks like. So I'm going to bum around, come back after Korea and bum around Europe some more, so you might see me again. Until, well, it depends how cold it gets. But it's still going to be warmer here than in Sweden. I know, yeah. But yeah, so we're finally, after all these years, it looks like we're actually going to make this thing now. So I'm very, very excited about that. So I'm turning another corner, and now I'm going to go from being comic book guy to movie mogul guy, you know, and see what happens. You know, it's like. Regardless of which, it'll be fun just to see it happen for real, you know. One thing seeing my characters on screen, it's another thing when I see my words coming out of their mouths. I wrote television, but that's not the same. Television sucks. It's not, you know, when I was in Hollywood, I wrote TV shows. It was terrible. I didn't even get to that because I actually wrote a softcore porn thing for Cinemax.
Oh! That was my Wikipedia.
Do we have time or are we done? Are we done? Or do we have
5
time?
minutes.
You want to hear the story?
Yeah.
All right. I had this buddy of mine. His name was Steve Crozier, and he was an art collector. So he bought artwork from me all the time. Everybody called him Skro. That was his nickname. Well, Skro worked on a really cheesy show called VIP with Pamela Anderson in the States. He also worked on The Rookie. He was one of the writers on the staff of The Rookie. But so I knew him when I got out to Hollywood. He was one of the few people that I actually knew out there. And so I would keep in touch with him, and he was working on this new show for Cinemax called Femme Fatales. So I'm in San Francisco doing the con there, what do they call that, WonderCon. And Skro's there with the entire staff of Femme Fatales. He says, Bob, why don't you come over? We're having a big dinner over at the W, and you come join us. You know, and it's like, bring your girlfriend, well, you know, free food, all this stuff, all these, you know, B-list movie stars will be there. Come on, it sounds like a good night, right? So I go, they have this private room at the W, and it's like they're serving Chinese food and all stuff, and everything's really fine. I see some faces I recognize, and a whole bunch of executives from HBO and Cinemax are there. And Skro does one of those ding, 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 ding on his glass. He goes, I'd like to make an announcement. And so when I listen, he goes, I'd like to proud to say that for the second season, I've convinced Bob Layton to write the first superhero episode of Femme Fatales. And I'm like, you what? He never asked me anything like that. He put it right up there in front of all the execs of HBO and Cinemax. And I'm thinking, and this is early in my career in Hollywood, and I'm like, and when I got out of there, I pinned him against a wall, and I go, what are you doing? And he goes, look, I don't really have much going on in the second season. I needed to do something. I go, you son of a bitch. I said, I'm just starting my career in Hollywood, and you want me to write porn? Well, it's not real porn. He said, it's just tits and ass, you know. And I said, no, I'm not going to do this. So I called a couple of friends of mine. I go back home, I called a couple of friends of mine, and they're like, well, there's two ways you could do this, Bob. You could either try to write the absolute best softcore porn that's ever done, or you can just say no, and you know your friend gets fired, and God knows whatever. So I thought about it for a while, and I said, okay. So I watched a couple of shows. They were just ghastly. Okay, I mean, and it's gratuitous, and I'm just like anybody else. I don't mind titillation. You can turn me on all you want to with visually, but it has to make some sense. And most of these shows, it's just exploited, and that's what I didn't like. So I sat down and I started thinking about it as a challenge. How can I write this thing where it's not just exploitive, but actually nudity or sex is part of the story, and furthers the plot. So I wrote this story called Libra, It's 30 minutes, is 30-minute show. And I figured out a way to get the characters to have sex and all stuff as being part of the plot. Because he's looking for a scar on her that would identify her as somebody that the people have been looking for a long time. In order to do it, he has to seduce her, he get her naked in order to find if she has that scar, so forth and so on. So I worked it into the story. Okay, I also worked into the girl was brain damaged and thought she was a superhero. Last thing she remembered was this character, Libra, that she grew up watching. So she becomes Libra, because nobody in their right mind would become a superhero, right? So I made her crazy. So I really killed myself on this script. And I turned it in, right? And they go nuts. They're like, oh my God, this is the best episode we'll ever do. Oh my God. And then Scrow's like excited, he goes, they're going to add cameras, because it's a one-camera show, right? They're going to add cameras. They're up in the budget. And, it's like, they're talking about getting A-list actors. I think, they were going to get Jeff Fahey or somebody that people had actually heard of. And they were so excited for him. So I'm like, well, I did it. Oh my God, I wrote the world's first successful non-exploitive porn. And so months go by, and I'm waiting, and I figure I should get the daily, shooting schedule. And so the shooting schedule finally arrives, and I'm looking at it, and the character list, and there's these characters, Bruno, Chaka, Ralphie. I go, wait, I didn't write any characters named Bruno, Chaka, or Ralphie. What the hell's going on? So they're filming at the Lacey Studios in Burbank. So I go driving over there like a madman, right? And I get through the gates or whatever, and I go up, and they're on the first scene. It takes place in a bordello, and I go, bordello! And it turns out that they spent so much money on the budget and costumes and stuff like that that they didn't have enough money to pay me to do the rewrite, because they decided to expand it to an hour, a 2-part episode. So Scrow and his buddy rewrote the whole thing themselves. and they wrote, what they wrote was one of the most egregious pieces of shit I've ever read in my life. Only one line of my original script survived. And I stormed off the set. I said, I will never do this again. And they stopped me. I said, I want my name taken off of this. And the executives of HBO cornered me at the gate and would not let me leave. And I said, we can't. We already went to San Diego and passed out flyers with your name all over it. So I told them that I settled on taking a plot credit and art design credit for it. And that's it. But otherwise, I forget, Buckaroo Banzai was the writer or something. I don't know who the picked some name or whatever. But after that, I said, I'm done with television. But yeah, that was my one foray into porn. You might as well know that too, since you know everything now. Yeah. That you don't have up there.
No,
Don't go looking for it either, okay?
Wikipedia's gonna be updated tonight.
No, it's been an honor having you here.
Is there any questions? I'm wondering if anyone...
Yeah.
Where can I find that porn?
I thought you mentioned that you haven't seen Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Is there a story to that?
Yes. A little falling out I had with the Marvel Studios over a lawsuit that I won. They're very poor losers. So I was not involved in any way, shape, or form. And I have a standard rule: I don't pay to go see Marvel movies. My daughter does. Because we take the kids. I buy the popcorn and the goodies. She pays for the tickets, so I don't have to give Disney my money. So I never went to see it. So fans were not happy with it anyway, from the sound of things. There's a very quick, funny story. I've never seen the movie in its entirety, but I was in Montreal about 3 or 4 months after the movie came out. Doing a con, I took a red eye back down to LA, right? And it's about 1 in the morning, everyone's asleep, and I'm looking. I don't sleep on planes. I just can't do it because I don't want to be this guy. you know what I'm talking about, right? I just can't be that guy. So I look around and nobody's looking. And I see that Iron Man 3 is on there. So I said, okay, gonna watch it, right? So I turn it on and put my earphones in, right? And I'm just sitting there. So about 25 minutes go by, and I feel a hand on my shoulder. And I look up and it's the flight attendant. And I take the earbuds out and she goes, Mr. Layton, are you all right? And I go, yeah, why? She goes, you're screaming. I wasn't aware that I was saying this stuff out loud. I'm like, they're not robots. If they were robots, he would never put the armor on. He fixed his heart with a ball-peen hammer and a tin can, and now he can't do anything right? You know, I mean, I was just, apparently, you know, they had violated the canon of the character so much that I wasn't aware that I was actually speaking out loud. So I've never actually got through the whole movie. But Marvel and I kissed and made up when Edgar Wright walked off the set of Ant-Man. Suddenly I was like their best friend again. Everything was right with the world, so, yeah.
Well,
It happens, it's business.
Did you have a problem with Edgar Wright on Ant-Man?
I didn't, they did.
They did.
Watch Icons Uncovered, Marvel.
I will.
If you can get it, because it's all in the 7th episode. I'm on it, but also Edgar. It's all about Edgar Wright, all right. And it was unfortunate. And I talked to Edgar after he left, and he was heartbroken. I mean, he was really heartbroken about the whole thing because this was the only Marvel movie that was pitched from the outside. They had planned all the other ones, but Edgar went to them and said, I want to do Ant-Man. And they added it to their list of things. But they, you don't hire Edgar Wright unless you want an Edgar Wright picture, you know what I mean? Let's face it, the guy has earned his place, but good old Marvel, you just can't, they have to poke the bear. So they poked the bear once too often and he walked out. Suddenly the word in Hollywood got around that the movie was floundering. I get a call, Bob, we're my old friend Bob, how you doing? From Marvel Legal, it's like, we shouldn't have problems, the two of us. You are a brick in the foundation of the house of ideas. What do you need? There you go. All right, I can tell. No, we gotta stop this. Okay? You didn't hear any of the porn stuff, okay?
Andre spørgsmål?
Sidste spørgsmål, last question. Do you still keep contact with any of your co-workers at Marvel?
Oh, of course. I told you, I just talked to Johnny after his dad passed.
Yeah.
I used to fill in for John. Every 2 weeks, he in Virginia. I don't know if you know that the whole Romita family was Marvel royalty. Virginia was the traffic manager at Marvel.
Yeah.
She's the one who made sure the books got done on time and the pencils got to the right person, the inks got to the right person. John was art director. But they got 2 weeks vacation, so I would come in and fill in for John.
Yeah.
So that was fun. I got to play art director for 2 weeks there.
Yeah.
They piled work on me too as soon as I got in there, because John moved at his own pace. I was a little faster than John. So they like, oh God, we can get stuff done fast. Oh my God. So they would save up till I got there and then just dump crap on me, But no, I stay friends with him. With Johnny, yes, there are people in the business that I stay friends with, but most of my friends are not in the business. I mean, our personal friends.
Yeah.
They're from all different lines of work,
Yeah.
That's the great thing about life, I mean, because I don't sit around and just talk about me all the time. Here, you paid me to talk about me, okay? So that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise, it's not all about work, I mean, this trip is not about work, really. This is my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just living it, It's the best one I can do.
Yeah.
Thanks to you people.
Thanks for sure.
Yeah. You're the reason I'm here.
Okay. Well,
Right.
thank you very much, Bob, for entertaining us.
Thank I've never had anyone so prepared as you. That's amazing.
Yeah. Thanks.
And thanks for coming. And I'm sure most of you have read, we have a signing on Saturday. And you're all very welcome to come by if you want the signature.
Please do, because I'm gonna feel real stupid just sitting there and doing nothing.
We found all the old comics that in any way has Bob's name on it.
Yeah.
And ready to sell and have signed. And there's a special print, which
Special
is
print.
numbered 1 out of 100, or
Yeah.
100 out of 100, which Bob will sign if anyone wants. So.
Fair enough. And there's more stories.
Oh yeah, and you bought your portfolio.
Oh, I didn't even talk about Mickey Rourke. Oh man, I didn't even talk about Mickey Rourke on the set of Iron Man 2. I got a whole thing about that. Because he's just balls out nuts.
And
You know?
Bob brought his portfolio, so if anyone wants to look at it and see.
You can't have the stuff in the back
Except
because
for the last ones.
yeah, exactly.
So.
There's not much left after the French got their hands on it. You know? they kind of went through it a lot. Feel free, put it somewhere where people can look through it.